I rise in support of SJ Res 24, sponsored by Senator Mullen of Oklahoma. This resolution will ensure that the northern long-eared bat remains protected as a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act. Last November, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced it would uplist the bat from threatened to endangered. While the service freely admits that a disease known as white nose syndrome, not human activity, is the bat's main threat. Why is that relevant? The bat's habitat spans 37 states. Uplisting the species will increase the bureaucratic red tape, the critical infrastructure, and forest management projects will have to go through. Yet, because a fungal disease is its main threat, those actions will not help the bat. Actually, the actions by Fish and Wildlife will hurt the bat. The service is pursuing a preservationist approach to recovering the species by restricting forest management activities, an approach that will prove to be unlikely to benefit the bat, but is guaranteed to leave our forests unmanaged, unhealthy, and vulnerable to catastrophic events such as wildfire. Non-forest management projects such as roads, bridges, and pipelines that travel through the bat's habitat will also face bureaucratic red tape. In fact, the service has identified over 3,000 projects that will require additional permits to operate during the uplisting. In my home state of Arkansas, we have a few million acres of federal land that we do a great job managing that land. Our federal land managers will now be focused on the bat instead of managing the habitat, but is actually good for the bat. An example of this is what was done on federal land in Arkansas to help restore the red-cockaded woodpecker, which is an endangered species. And as you can see by this poster, this is what the forest looks like unmanaged. You see a management activity of thinning and burning, and you end up with a habitat that's an open savanna-type forest that's actually good habitat for the bat. It's good habitat for the red-cockaded woodpecker. Where these practices have been put in place, not only has the woodpecker thrived, but the bobwhite quail, the wild turkey, deer, a flourish of new vegetation, more biodiversity for plant and animal species because of good management practices. They now capture red-cockaded woodpeckers off of this land and relocate them to other places, and this is a success story. Much like other management activities that we saw with the lesser prairie chicken in the last bill we debated are success stories. But when U.S. Fish and Wildlife comes in with an uplisting, it will stop the management, and it will actually create worse habitat for the bat as well as many other species, and this is hurting, let me repeat that, this is hurting an endangered species more than it's helping an endangered species. None of the actions Fish and Wildlife has proposed will address the bat's main threat, which is white nose syndrome. I want to be clear. The CRA will not remove the bat from the endangered species list. Instead, it returns the species to its previous status as threatened. This approach will allow states to continue their efforts to develop effective voluntary conservation agreements to benefit the northern long-eared bat as a species while also ensuring the long-term viability of local communities. To date, 6 of the 37 states in the bat's range have developed habitat conservation plans to benefit the bat, while providing reasonable assurances to stakeholders that forest management and infrastructure projects can continue. These plans should continue to be developed and implemented. Again, this is a bipartisan resolution that was sent to us from the Senate. The Democrat-controlled Senate sent us this bill. It's now our obligation to pass this bill and send it to President Biden so that he can sign it into law and stop this egregious action by Fish and Wildlife, who continues to go above and beyond their authority that has been given to them by Congress by making rules that are based on political science and not real science. I urge my colleagues to support the resolution, and I reserve the balance of my time.